Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namaste, everybody. Welcome to the Sattva program of 2024, the first one. For this Sattva program, we are so delighted to have Dr. Shekhar Mayanil, who is my elder brother in terms of age, knowledge, wisdom, yogic powers, understanding, all kinds of things. So I learned a lot of things from him. He has a PhD in neuroscience and he has done lots of research in that area. He also happens to be an accomplished yogi. He has done yoga training as well as yoga sadhana for his entire life. He has learned yoga from, he can tell you about his guru, but he has very nicely connected yogic practice, neuroscience, and how we interact with the world very, very nicely. He keeps telling me that the diet protocol we follow in Sattva is really Ucha Kotika, yani it is of the highest quality. And I don't understand what he means by that because when I see food, I know I like it, I eat it. Okay. What it does after it goes into my body, I don't know and I don't even have control. So I'm just grateful that I have food in front of me. I'm grateful it satiates me. I'm grateful I like it. It nourishes me. And because of this interest in food, many experiments I've done in food and the Sattva program we run, people like Shekhar Dada have come into our life. So Shekhar Dada, I'm going to ask you to unmute, which you have unmuted
Yes,
already. So
yes, yes.
if you can come online and then talk about yourself a bit and then give us a presentation or give us your thoughts, what you want to talk about. Go ahead, please.
So, thank you, Vikramji. This is an honor to be sharing the stage with you almost. Yes, you are right that your protocol, that whatever that you have been talking in Sattva is simply out of the ordinary. It's not ordinary. It is really high quality concept of what we take in our own body. That is what it is all about here. So you always emphasize not just the food that we eat, but the things that we take in through our senses. That is the overall food. That's how you view food as, not just uh, the what we eat. Of course, what we eat is very, very, very important, but what we see, what we hear, what we think, all these things are equally important. So what I will be sharing today will be actually nutritional neurosciences. It is a switch from yogic neurosciences to nutritional neurosciences. Of course, I'll blend all the things together, the yogic neurosciences and nutritional neurosciences, all things in one. So let me start sharing my screen. Vikram Dada, if you want to ask me anything specific, you can start, or else whatever, whichever way.
No, I think
The
you
the
have a
the,
nice
the thing
PowerPoint
was,
presentation prepared. So why don't we just go ahead with your presentation and then if there are any questions, I will ask questions first. If I have any questions, if I don't, then other people can also ask.
okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. So I mean, I just wanted to streamline my thoughts so that that's the reason I, I make presentation because I can go out of control also. Praveen knows that. Okay.
So in this picture, as it comes up, everybody can see on the bottom right is Shekhar Dada doing Ushtrasan. Okay. How many people at his age are able to do this asan or be that flexible? Very few, right? All right, Shekhar Dada, go ahead, please. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So this is the basically I just call it as the satsang with Vikramji, and so on sattva diet, yoga, neuroscience, these are the aspect of nutritional slash yogic neurosciences. So how does this particular thing? Let me take. Uh, pointer, right? How is doing yogasana and eating the right kind of food affect the brain? That is the whole idea. So far, we have been talking about how yogasana and everything affect our brain, but today there are several presentations and satsang on this particular thing. But let us discuss today this particular food um, and how it affects the brain and our thinking pattern, things like that. So different aspects of brain structure and function that may be influenced by diet. That is called nutritional neuroscience. So let me first go with this particular slide where we see that, let's assume that we have a big, what you call a cell. Just assume that whole big cell is there, and inside the cell there is the nucleus, and inside the nucleus there is DNA, right? So, and people say, molecular biologists and whatever people, all those scientists say that DNA is the backbone of everything in our body. Yes, it is, but it is not alone. That it cannot work by itself. So it is under control by several aspects. So one of the aspects is that DNA makes mRNA, which is like once the DNA, it has to make protein. So it cannot just make protein on its own. It has to make RNA first, mRNA. So I don't get confused with the whole idea. My idea to show this slide is to understand that DNA, we think that it is controlling everything, but it is actually not so. It is affected by a diet, affected by several other aspects. So DNA is there. It makes RNA, which is we call it mRNAome, and this RNA makes protein, which is called proteome. And the protein is a functional aspect of the cell. For that matter, anything. It is through protein only that all the functions of the cells keep going. So, but as I said, the genome, the DNA itself is not by its, has its own this thing function until unless it is controlled by epigenome. Epigenome is the thing that halts a gene to be expressed or not to be expressed. So what it does, it puts on top of the DNA some markers which we call histone marks, and those histone marks, if they are of a particular kind, then they open up the DNA for it to be making RNA and protein, or else it will shut itself off. And that's why you must have seen or heard that junk DNA, 70% is junk DNA, means not necessarily functional so far as we think. We thought that the DNA is non-functional in life, 70% of it, because it does not code for protein. What it codes for is something different. What it codes for is RNAome, which means that non-coding RNA, which means there are some RNA which codes for protein and there are RNA which just are there. They are there. And how they affect the epigenome and the genome is a current field of extreme interest in people, right? So this controls this epigenome, and epigenome control the genome, and the genome control the mRNAome, and mRNAome control the proteome. So this is the sequence of events, right? Now, with Sattva diet, as Vikramji always points out, that it is not just the food that we eat. Food definitely is important for all these functions, but there is something I'll call sanskarom. Sanskar is nothing but what you call um, social imprinting, you can call it, or environmental imprinting. Environment means the
Impressions.
impressions, right? Right. So this sanskarom happens to be like that. So prayer is there, yogasana is there, pranayama, all these are basically a part of sanskarom, right? And then, of course, with the pranas and the pranic energy, this is basically essentially headed towards our consciousness. So this is the one which controls all these things in one set. We think genome is the only thing. Science has only reached up to this portion, up to the yellow portion. This green, this blue, and the dark blue and the purple, they are still under consideration and nobody knows more. So what Patanjali ji has talked about is this aspect, big time. So that is what my interest is to understand what all things are there that control these guys, RNAome and epigenome and things like that. So this is the epigenome control the genome, the RNAome control the epigenome, the sanskarome control the RNAome, the pranic energies and the om and everything controls each other. So this is the process of regulation basically. So this is, if you understand this aspect, then the rest of the presentation will be very easy. Now, the problem is that why is this not happening to us? Why is this Om not able to do the real control on it by itself? Because we pose challenges to it. We block its pathway. It is it is free flowing all the time. It is helping us all the time, but we block it. How do we block it? By this process, which we call this HPA axis. If this HPA axis, I will say hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal. Now, what happens is when we experience any kind of a challenge or a stress, and if we are not able to deal it with properly, don't think that God is going to, prayer does not mean that you are going to the God is going to take care of. God is always taking care of you. The only thing is we are not able to understand how he takes care of us. So once you know that this is what he is, you become the co-creator now. So you become the helper in your own life. So this is the whole aspect. Any stress is experienced by hypothalamus, which sends out some hormone and activates the pituitary. And the pituitary, when activated, sends out some hormone, and it activates the adrenal cortex, and which is what is called cortisol is released. This cortisol is the poison of our system. Now, early on, we used to use cortisol to run away and fight and flight, and so that the animals used to chase us, and we used to immediately climb the tree million years ago. But now we are sitting at home and in front of the computer, and still we are stressed out, but we are not running anywhere. So this cortisol gets stored all the time in our body, and that is what breaks this axis, right? So there is a negative feedback, which always increase in cholesterol will block this activation of hypothalamus and pituitary. But if it is constantly produced, then this particular thing is offset. So this HPA abnormalities happen. Increase in cholesterol. First of all, it affects is immune system. Once immune system is busted, there is no hope. Because what happens, immune system controls the inflammation aspect of it, digestive, autoimmune, neurodegenerative, neuropsychiatric disorder, all these things starts with inflammation. So that is the worst thing that can happen to us. So how do we deal with solving this challenge is basically the yogasana aspect of it. In addition to that, there is something much more gross, which means yogasana is one, thought, how to manage your thought is another one. What all things, what attitude will you work with? So the gravity of gratitude was basically to figure out how to deal with this aspect much more clearly. Today, we will be talking about how food or what we eat essentially is going to solve this problem. Okay, so make sure that this is what, if you understand this slide, just make a picture of this slide and let it sit in your head forever. Once you understand this, you will say, oh, I am headed for a disaster, which means if there is inflammation going on in my body, autoimmune dysfunction happen, cardiac dysfunction, neurodegenerative dysfunction, including I have not written much more. I have written very few things. Cancer is also one of them. It causes that. Cancer is an inflammatory disease, actually. Okay, anyway. So this is what I was. So the sattvic food basically prevention of the HPA axis abnormalities happen here at this level. This is the place where sattvic food helps. Whereas the reversal of HPA abnormalities at a higher level is done by yogasana, pranayam, dhyan, and sattvic achar vichar. This is the place Sattvic Achar Vichar helps. So when Vikram Dada talks about um, the Sattvic food, he does not just mean Sattvic food that we eat. It also means this. Okay, the Sattvic Achar Vichar is also Sattvic food. And that is the beauty of what Vikram Dada is spearheading. And I fully applaud him on that. That I said, once I understood what he is headed for, I said, man, this is what he is headed for actually. But so, and I always was trying to understand this much better, and I was discussing with him most of the time, doing satsang for hours together. And I said, man, this is fantastic. So anyway, so this is what we'll talk about. Now, this is the dietary. The diet means the one with things that we eat. Science has not gone beyond the food so far. There's lot more to it. So what does food do is this is the genetic and epigenetic regulation of the fundamental aspect of the brain. It whatever that the food does, it is altering the brain function via epigenetic mechanisms. Always. It cannot directly do it. It has to go through epigenetic, which means to say with the way it, whatever that we eat controls the gene expression, right? How the DNA will be made functional. So what genes it will regulate. Because what happens when in the beginning of our childhood, from the fetal level, there are lots of genes which are regulated. But when the differentiation starts, the genes are shut down. And if the genes don't get shut down, even at the adult age, what that causes cancer. If the genes are not shut down even at adult age in different organs, then dysfunctionality happens, right? That's what it is. So what it does is this epigenetic regulation affects brain development. It affects the different signaling networks, right? There are different neurotransmitters having different signaling system going on, and that is what this epigenetic mechanism regulates. Cognition and memory. In the brain, all the cognition and memory is totally dependent on the kind of food we eat. Proteostasis means to say that there are some proteins which are synthesized and there are some protein which has to go. So it's a ongoing cleaning process also. So that's what they call it, the transient fasting, we call it upavas. I don't call fasting because you're always thinking of food there. Upavas means when you are sitting with yourself, and one self means Om, when you are letting the Om do the regulation for you. So that's what called upavas, right? So this particular 16-hour fasting, they call it, is very important because it cleans up, it autophagy. Autophagy means there is some junk proteins that are formed which has to go into the protein, the lysosomal pathway. Lysosome means lysis. The protein get broken down, and new proteins formed instead of the old ones. So if there is any mutation, things like that, that protein is gone. So this is what protease is, and this is regulated by epigenetic mechanism. And inflammatory process also is regulated by epigenetic mechanism, because any deteriorative effect due to inflammatory process can lead to lot of nonsense, lot of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson disease, Huntington disease, depression, and anxiety, allodynia. All these things are coming from inflammatory processes going out of whack. And you would be amazed to know that vitamin C in the entire body, let's say if you have 100 unit of vitamin C in our body, let's say the entire body, right? 50% is in the brain. Now you understand why vitamin C is so very important for brain function. Not necessarily that it gives the ascorbic acid, which is basically vitamin C, but it blocks inflammatory process. That is the biggest and the best non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agent in our brain. And of course, brain is full of lipid, which means omega-3 fatty acids, which is the known endogenous in anti-inflammatory molecule. So let's start with gradually by understanding each quadrant, right? Just briefly, not whole lot. So the brain development impact of diet on brain development is, brain is all lipid. If you open up a human brain or a mouse brain or something like that, then you will see it's very gooey. That gooiness is purely because of lipid. And lipid is the most important function, most important ingredient in our diet, which is used by the brain. So 50% of the fatty acids are in the brain are polyunsaturated fatty acid. Please underline this, polyunsaturated fatty acid, which is basically arachidonic acid. Arachidonic, don't worry about the names and don't get confused about all that. When if you buy a bottle of omega-3 fatty acid, in the nutritional ingredients, you will see that there are so many this and that nomenclature sitting there, right? DHA and PFA and all that stuff, right? So this is basically nothing but this polyunsaturated fatty acid. So what it does is it helps regulate the glutamatergic uh, synapses. In the brain, there are neurons which interact with another neuron, and the way they interact is they form synapse. So glutamatergic synapse, glutamate is a excitatory neurotransmitter, right? So the moment you have this, the brain is fired up. I mean, if you have this in your in your diet, then this particular synapse will form readily, very rapidly, and as a result of which, it causes plasticity. Plasticity means new. Let's say an old synapse is not functioning with the full capacity. So what it does, if the glutamatergic synapse, the glutamate uh, uh, is if DHA is there, it helps glutamate synapse to form better, and the old one is destroyed and new one is formed. And this is called plasticity. And this plasticity is extremely important for cognitive ability, right? So because what happens, like cognitive ability means I remember Vikram Dada's name just now. After 2 minutes, I go and see, did I know you? Do I know you from somewhere? I forgot. Who is he? Within seconds, I forgot, which means I don't have that cognitive ability uh, to remember somebody's name, right? And this is purely because of we don't have this particular DHA in our system, which controls glutamatergic synapses. So you understand what is happening in Alzheimer's disease. If that's why they say you put DHA, you put omega-3 fatty acids, or eat fish for that matter, especially salmon, then you will have better. And so it slows down the cognitive decline that normally happens if we don't have this in. And what happens is, lot of people are in this country taking statins. Statin is the one which blocks cholesterol synthesis, right? Which is good, but it affects the brain. And that's why you'll see a big epidemic, I would say pandemic quality. Those people who are constantly on statins will face cognitive decline. Definitely. There is no doubt in my mind. And that can be a different subject of discussion. Some other time we'll discuss that. Now, this particular DHA improves neuronal differentiation, which means from the neuroblast, brand new neurons that are formed, to make it a differentiated, very specific. Differentiation means either it will form dopaminergic neuron or it will form serotonergic neuron. All those things were determined by that. Now, gangliosides in mother's milk also are beneficial, and they affect the gut microbial flora, which means microbiome, and affect brain development. So this is very important. B vitamins, B6, 9, 12, and vitamin D, these are all, and vitamin C are all very, very important for brain function. Another thing is zinc is extremely important, because what it does, it helps in the sensory, motor, and cognitive development. Sensory means Sensory means how the brain receives information, and the motor is how it sends information from the brain to um, act in the world, right? That's what. So zinc is extremely important in that. So they say that even a slight deficiency in the zinc of maternal diet can affect the child's the fetal development in a very negative way. A slight difference. So this is so important, and zinc is present in parsley and all that. So you can, or the hari dhania is also full of zinc. So that's what it is. So iodine also is very important because it helps in the thyroid and basal metabolic activity in our body. And then there is another net. Now I was talking about the other quadrant, the signaling quadrant. The signaling is basically yin and yang. Either it is upregulated or downregulated. Let's say for excessive dopamine will be there. So there is another thing that will downregulate that dopamine. So which means depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and depression. These are all different spectrum disorders. So when the spectrum disorder happens, is because of improper regulation. The signaling networks are not properly working. If they are in homeostasis, then everything is perfect. So this is the diet can affect depression and anxiety, sleep, wakefulness and arousal, perception of pain, and there's so many things that it can do. So why does? Because there are several neurotransmitters, and those neurotransmitters are formed once we digest our food, and after digestion of the food, the digested aspect of the food is acted upon by the gut bacteria. Once that gut bacteria acts on those particular digested molecules, they form neurotransmitters. And those neurotransmitters are the one which does the job of regulating the signaling network. So these are different amino acids, neurotransmitters, glutamate, GABA, and dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, acetylcholine. These are different neurotransmitters, right? So this is what basically regulates the signaling, functional signaling networks, right? This is what it is. Now let's talk about the different aspects of our diet. How many people have seen the patram pushpam phalam of Patrakine platter? This is what we have been talking about.
So Shekhar Dada, I want to say that this is not the Vikram Pattarkine platter, but this is the Sattva platter. Okay.
I like that. I like, because Patrakine is sattva actually. Why you call sattva platter?
That is nice of you
Patrakine
to say,
is,
but this is what we recommend, that we should eat as close to nature as possible,
yes,
so that
yes, yes.
whatever is created by nature, which is ready for us to eat without having to do any processing, because that's how we have eaten most of our history so far.
Yes,
The history of
yes.
cooking is very short, whereas the history of eating natural food is much longer than that.
Very true, very true. Now, all these thing that this whole platter has so many good things which affects the brain actually, eventually, not directly, like it has to go digested and then it affects. So tyrosine is the precursor for dopamine. Remember that. So all this, some of the, I'll tell you which food has the tyrosine and which does not have, or which has tryptamine, arginine, and all that stuff. So these are the precursor molecules for these neurotransmitters to happen, right? Arginine, for instance. So when we do the Brahmari pranayam, what it does, it uses the arginine from our system, and this Brahmari pranayam does, what it does is increases the nitric oxide synthase level in our body, in our brain, and mast cells and endothelial cells, right? Neurons and all that. Arginine is the one which acts like a substrate for what? The nitric oxide synthase enzyme, which produces nitric oxide. And this is the one which is really the thing. That's how the Brahmari works in our brain, right? Anyway, so this is what so what it does, platter contains fruit, vegetable, flax seeds, remember, whole green cereal, nuts and seeds. These are the typical anti-depressive diet. Let me tell you, if you eat these, there is no way in the world that you can be depressed, even if you might have a inherited genes from wherever. Mm. Either through your parents or whatever. Oh, my dad and my great grandfather were depressed. I say you don't need to be. If you change the diet, you can you can reverse this depression nonsense from our system. So anyway, now I am so fascinated to share with you some of the foods that how our Rishi Munis have figured out what is good for us. How do you know what is good for us? They don't have the data. I said, do you have no data? You have a data or no? You don't have anyway. There is always this argument that we have to have the right way of where is the data. So they need they believe in printouts. We believe in our own direct experience. You eat carrot, your eyes will be good. You eat tomato, your heart will be good. You eat grapes, your lungs will be fantastic. And if you eat ginseng, you have the whole thing taken care of. No stress. It is a most adaptogenic molecule that you can think of is ginseng, right? Now, beta carotene prevents cataract, enhances blood flow. It protects against macular degeneration above above the age of 65, and it is a primary source of vitamin A in our food. There is no other place where you can get as much vitamin A as in carrot. And obviously, the food that we ate, or the rishis and those saints figured out, is, oh, if you do this, then it will help my heart, or it will help my eyes, it will help my this thing. Just by the shape of it makes them feel, oh, this is how it is. So any of those rishis who took these grapes never had this asthma triggered allergies and things like that, right? And in tomato, you have the lycopene, which, sorry, I should have stroke. It is not stroke. Okay. Lowers the risk of stroke and prevents pre-hypertension, helps in prostate gland health, and of course is the best source for vitamin C, which is good. So they say that whatever is good for the heart is good for the brain also. And that is so true. There is no doubt in my mind that whatever that is good for heart is good for the brain. So over here, the grapes contain the proanthocyanidin, and that reduces the asthma attack. So this is the exact molecule, or the modified version of this that is found in those uh, spray canister that we for asthma people. This is exactly what it is. But it is coming from the eat grapes, which are seeded grapes. The seed has that contain the aspect of it. Don't do the seedless one. Seedless um, is a different. They have figured out how to destroy the very the juice, the essence of the grape by making it seedless. Anyway, walnut. How many people understand the walnut when you break open? Looks like the fissures and the sulci and the gyri is all exactly look like brain. Exactly look like brain. And no wonder that is so good for uh, um, brain health. Why? Because it contains those ingredients which are the precursor for at least 3 dozen neurotransmitters. Can you believe that? 3 dozen neurotransmitters. This particular walnut has that the ingredient, the precursor ingredient that will make these neurotransmitter down the road. Of course, not suddenly, just you eat it and it just happens. No, it takes a while to get that happen. It is the biggest good source of omega-3 fatty acid. Now, DHA and all that we discussed few minutes ago, it has that. It is one of the best source of folic acid, vitamin B9 and vitamin E, and it has more antioxidant property than any given food in the planet. Please, in the patrak platter, or we can sattvic platter, you call it, it is always with walnut. always. And that's why I find that, oh wow, this is great. Another one is kidney beans resembles kidney actually. And that is so good for, they are the superheroes for our gut health. If there is no constipation, let me tell you one thing. If you don't have constipation at all, you cannot get any brain challenges in future. If you have constipation, that is a precursor for brain challenges to happen. So make sure that you eat this rajma anyway, so that it prevents kidney stones also, and it is the best thing uh, for clearance. Okay. Celery resembles bone actually. It contains vitamin K, and it, so if anybody having bone density challenges, I think osteoporosis people will gain a lot uh, by eating celery almost every day. I love celery anyway. Almond is another. It resembles exactly. It looks like, I have seen. It just looks like an almond. The amygdala, which is extremely important for regulating our emotions. Sometimes we get out of control suddenly. That suddenly getting out of control is regulated by amygdala, because that can hijack the brain, hijack all the information reaching the prefrontal cortex, which has the logical and decisive or discriminative faculty here. If if these are not, if amygdala is overactivated, then this is hijacked. Means you will never get any uh, logical explanation for your action. You just spur of the moment. So so amygdala's health is very important, because almonds contain those molecules which keeps the amygdala in balance, not overactivated. And if there is any overactivation, it reduces the activation. If there is a low activation, that it increases the activation. So that balancing act is done by the almond. Okay. Now avocados and womb and cervix. This is very very important for women if they have any ovarian challenges going on. This is cervical cancer or anything of that nature. It helps also in birth hormones, which means this particular thing down the road has the potency of making oxytocin in our brain. Can you believe that this particular thing has oxytocin producing ability, which is basically the birth hormone, and it can shed the unwanted weight. At the same time, this contains very, very friendly fat that we should eat. The polyunsaturated fatty acid is rich in avocado, prevents cervical cancer. The Now sweet potato resembles pancreas. Can you believe that these people figured out that this is and pancreas? Because why see, most people think, oh, remove carbohydrate, how they just remove carbohydrate, but it is important. But we should not eat like ready-made carbohydrate, like sugar. Sugar is a ready-made carbohydrate. That's why if you eat sugar, it gives you a insulin high, which means it suddenly shoots up the insulin level so much that initially it is good, but if you keep eating sugar like that, that insulin is a cytokine, right? And it can cause inflammation. Excessive insulin can cause inflammation also. That's why it is important. Plus, if you eat sweet potato, then this, which is high in beta carotene, which is a potent antioxidant, it can help uh, from oxidation induced aging and or cancer. It is a low glycemic index food. So this is very important. Another thing is anything which looks like this oval shape, ovary and all that, are very good for female reproductive health. Broccoli. Praveen can vouch for how broccoli has helped him overcome this challenge of cancer. Broccoli was just broccoli itself. Steam it and eat it can reduce the risk of prostate cancer, breast cancer by 45%. This is the reported studies. I mean, I'm not taking it out of blue. It is a fact, and there are experienced people who can vouch for this. And it it there are some compounds that have been isolated and patented, and they are used and in clinical trials, and they have uh, proved to be to slow down the bladder cancer. Now, I am not in favor of isolated compounds, because the isolated compounds are not in their matrix. Matrix means in around the molecules which have the property to balance their action. That's why I would rather eat raw as is rather than eating the active molecule from it. The active molecule does not do the right job because it does not know how to stop itself. Whereas if you eat the broccoli, the active molecule will be stopped by the other ingredients in the thing, which if it is going out of control, or other ingredient will activate that particular molecule if it is less in system. So this is the beauty of eating the whole in its own environment, in its own matrix. I call it matrix. So that is very important. Don't eat beta carotene as such from the market. Eat um, carrot or eat sweet potato directly. Don't eat the purified aspect, even though it might help in solving your problem, but that is not the real thing. Eat the right food, the from where it is taken. These pure molecules are extracted. Another thing, grapefruit for because it contains limonoids and it inhibits the development of cancer. Banana is a fantastic thing. It is one of the best foods because it first of all it has tryptophan in it, and which is basically the precursor for serotonin. It is the best antidepressant drug known to mankind. It is full of potassium and calcium and magnesium, and it completely solves the problem of hypertension for you. If you are feeling stressed or whatever, eat two three bananas, everything will be gone. So another thing is ginger. It resembles stomach. So anytime when you have some motion sickness, morning sickness, colic, upset stomach, diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, nausea, best thing is to go for ginger. And um, it slows down the bowel tumors also, like colon cancer and everything. This can solve. Mushroom is full of vitamin D, and actually it helps in improving hearing also. In people who are have difficulties, not just with vitamin D, but it also has some other aspects. Which these three tiny bones in our inside the inner ear, malleus, incus, and stapes. This is what is the real um, beneficiary of mushroom. Anyway, diet and anxiety. These are the molecules which we talked about just now. Coffee, green tea, and the black seeded grape. These are these are the molecules which are present in those this thing. The beta carbolin, the EGCG. EGCG is epigalactocatenin gallate, whatever. This is a complex name. This guy helps in overcoming panic attack or anxiety and depression. Resveratrol is a forever young molecule, make you forever young. I worked on resveratrol, the fundamental mechanism of it, and it is the one which affects the SERT, the histone deacetylase, HDAC. Anyway, we'll talk about that some other time. So these are the molecules which are basically, if you eat these, you can never have depression, anxiety, or panic attack, because what it does, these molecules do is they inhibit the neurotransmitter uptake. So what happens is, from one neuron, the neurotransmitter is released, right? After it is worked on its receptor on the other neuron, right? What is happening in that stays inside the into the outside the neuron, that that area which is called a synaptic cleft, they call it, right? The synaptic cleft, the neurotransmitter which is released from one neuron sits there. So what happens it there, if somebody has a very fast uptake mechanism of the neurotransmitter, what happens it does the job and immediately gets the uptaken. So that person will sort of experience little bit of activity, but he'll be depressed instantly because the uptake is so fast that it has to activate other receptors, not just two receptors, at least 100 receptors you should activate, right? So what these guys do is they block the neurotransmitter reuptake at the synapse, so that the neurotransmitter stays longer in the synapse for it to be bind to receptor. So this is what does. Another one is diet and memory and cognition. These guys, green tea, blueberry, and turmeric. How many people understand turmeric is one of the wonder drug of the century? Last century, this is this is in clinical trials of human Alzheimer disease who have gone to higher stage of Alzheimer. They have recovered back. They have started becoming good. They started remembering. They started doing stuff. All that stuff has the most powerful anti-inflammatory molecule, increases neurogenesis in the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory, brain memory, not the, of course, uh, Praveen will say memory doesn't just is a domain of the brain, it is the domain of the entire body. Yes, it is true. But at least we have seen that it increases neurogenesis in hippocampus, because if we destroy hippocampus, there is no memory. And the frontal cortex also. And these are the basic hubs for memory in the brain. Of course, other aspects also, they are not independently working. They are working in conjunction with other brain areas. So curcumin helps that. It is a neuroprotective from oxidative stress and prevents Alzheimer disease. Now, EGCG, you remember the green tea that we talked about? It inhibits the toxicity of alpha-synuclein. Now, what happens is there are some protein which are responsible for vesicular release of neurotransmitter, right? Vesicular release of neurotransmitter. These are called alpha-synucleins. Now, when this alpha-synuclein mutation or some kind of a snafu happens in those vesicular protein, what happens is they get oligomerized, which means they cluster together, and eventually that cluster is a challenge for the release of neurotransmitters, right? And that is and once that neurotransmitter is not released, the neuron which was going to be activated by this neurotransmitter release dies eventually. And that is the start of Parkinson disease situation. So say for instance, there is some region in the brain which is responsible for dopamine release, right? And once that stops to release dopamine, then the cells which it was helping eventually first dies, since there is always a trophic interaction between neurons. So if I activate you, you activate me, or you send some signals into me so that I also stay alive. So there is a give and take in the system. So if the give is not going, this fellow also eventually dies. The neuron which was supplying the neurotransmitter will also die. So that is a back. It starts to have this problem, and that's why the memory, cognition, the movement, the motor function, all these things gets destroyed. So EGCG inhibits the toxicity of this, which means it does not allow oligomerization of alpha-synuclein, and it improves memory and cognition. Another one is blueberries, flavonols and anthocyanins. All this colored aspect of food, you always, whenever there is any food which is colored, eat them. This is very, very good because these plant products, anthocyanidin, flavonols, and all that, they are extremely good for our brain's well-being. These activate the dopaminergic neurons, and it regenerates them also. Say, for instance, in PD, these are the ones which get destroyed. So if you eat blueberries, green tea, and turmeric and all that, it helps you improve memory and cognition. Sleep, wakefulness, remember melatonin. So have you felt, I have felt, if instead of eating dinner, the regular dinner sometimes, I eat just a bowl of cereal, take oats, steel cut oats, boil them, put some uh, uh, almond milk in there and eat it. It makes feel good. And you know what? Then I said, why is it that when I eat that kind of a breakfast, I had fantastic sleep? Why? Because that this particular thing contains tryptophan, which is a precursor of melatonin, and it within couple of hours you will feel that you are drowsy. So this melatonin is the molecule which is increased at when the daylight decreases. So this particular thing is good for sleep. B12, B3, B6, D all influences good quality sleep. Coming back to this gut, if you take care of your gut, it will take care of your brain. So that's the best thing is to take care of your gut, because what it does is gut microbiota basically are the ones which creates neurotransmitters by acting upon the digested food product in our small intestine and large intestine. And this neurotransmitter thus formed activate our brain. How? By activating the receptors on the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the real deal. So this is gut microbiota, intestinal mucosa, intestinal immune system, enteric nerve. So these are the things that are actually the brain gut axis, right? It activates this, and this guy activates this. So this is the cycle that it controls. The entire cycle get controlled. What they say that the gut and the brain have the same neurotransmitters and they do the same function. But why gut is very important? Because it controls brain. Gut controls the brain. Every time I have seen anybody who has so-called Parkinson's situation going on, more motor function disorder, things like that. First thing I ask them is, are they is the clearance okay or not? And they say yes. Not really. Oh yes. I say okay. Show your tongue. And if the tongue is coated, I know that they cannot tongue cannot lie. Coated tongue means bad gut health, no doubt. So fix that. That is more important. Stress, emotion, and all that. This is what causes gut bacteria to die faster, because steroid and corticosteroids and cortisol and all that, they are poison for the body, and the poison is basically affecting the gut. And that's why when you have too much stress, you keep going to bathroom few times. Why? Because bacteria cannot bacteria is basically calling you to say, I can survive here, this kind of stress, I have to go. So dead bacteria don't like to stay in the gut. Can you believe beautiful is how beautiful it is? Dead bacteria don't like to stay in the gut. Only live bacteria likes to stay in the gut. So if you are dead, if you have a lot of dead bacteria because of the steroids in your system or the cortisol in your system, stress hormones in the system, bacteria dies and you say, I'm going, man, I'm not around here. So that's why. Because this substance P, vasoactive intestinal peptide, gastrin, these are all present in the brain also. So that's the beauty of it. Now, this is the vagus nerve. You see the vagus nerve network? Amazing. It starts at the 10th cranial nerve here, and it is all over the body, everywhere. And the only difference about this vagus nerve is, and other sensory and motor neurons are, sensory goes from the outside to the brain, and the motor goes from the brain to outside. Whereas this guy is bidirectional. So it can send signal from the brain and send signal to the brain. So this is exactly what we call Manipura Chakra. Okay, look at that. So that's why when you do Surya Namaskar or Ustrashan or Anjaneyasan, what you are basically doing is activating this particular vagus nerve, Manipura Chakra, which is, look at the size of the neurons, the big neuron that it has. So this is what you get activated. Once this get activated, then they can make this motility happen, movement happen in the gut and the brain, and if there is any constipation or stuff like that, it will go away, and so that the stress is gone. The first target of stress is intestine, not the brain. Brain happens later on. So this is how it's the vagus nerve. The signal that is coming from the vagus nerve, from the afferent signal, they first interact at the nucleus tractus solitarius. So don't worry about all the names. It activates this, and then it activates the entire brain gradually. So that is why that when you feel good, when you are cleared, nice, you feel very good. That's exactly the reason. Now, in summary, I would say that allow what you eat to be sattvic, what you see to be sattvic. Now, this see here thoughts will be dealt some other time. How these thoughts affect the brain. Because this is what you also are eating, actually, taking in through the senses. This is only from the mouth and the taste and all that. But when you see, this is something that if you see some horrible movie at night and sleep, you will be disturbed sleep. What happens is brain is not functioning properly. Brain should be at peace at night, not turbulent. If we hear noise pollution can cause that. Thought pollution, noise pollution, and visual pollution can destroy your brain functioning because it affects the gut, brain, and the body. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shekhar Dada. That was amazing. So,
Thank you.
if everybody's still awake, okay, let's ask Shekhar Dada some questions. You see, if you eat sattvic food, if you hear sattvic words, if you hear something that is said with love, it has an effect of calming you down. Okay. If you are able to remain calm, if you are able to remain alert, and if you are able to understand what is being said, it gives you a great feeling. Okay. If you don't understand what is being said, then you could fall asleep. What I understood from what Shekhar said is, if our food is sattvic means something that is going to induce not too much excitement in the body, and of course no lethargy. So the food should energize us, but at the same time not overexcite us. That is called sattvic food. Okay. If it overexcites us, then it is rajasic food. And if it somehow puts us down in depression or it makes us lethargic, then it is tamasic food. So these are the three categories of food. What I have noticed is, if we eat sattvic food only when we are hungry, so our system will send us the hunger signals. Okay. When you eat the sattvic food only when you're hungry, and you have to eat it in a quantity that is easily assimilated in the body. So if you eat the sattvic food in greater quantity, okay, so even though sattvic food is good for you, if you eat it to your heart's content or you overeat it, then that same sattvic food can become rajasic or even tamasic. Okay? Whereas if you are really hungry, then even if you eat some tamasic food or some rajasic food, that food will get properly digested, properly converted into the system, and will not bother us. So whether the food is sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic also depends upon how we are and how we take it. So for example, I'll give you an example. There used to be a saint in Shegao called Gajanan Maharaj. He used to eat whatever was offered to him. In fact, he was discovered by a person by the name Bankatlal when Gajanan Maharaj was sitting at a trash dump and he was eating food that was thrown away by other people. That's how he was found. Now, of course, we are not Gajanan Maharaj and we should not pretend to be Gajanan Maharaj. And if we eat food that is completely wasted and thrown away and we don't know how old it is and whether it is still okay or not, we will not be able to digest it. Okay. What we should do, ordinary people, is we should eat our food with various different colors. We should also eat food that is natural but seasonal. So right now it is winter in America. So I should not be going to the market and getting a mango, even though the mango is coming from somewhere in South America or maybe in Australia. There the season of mango is there, but here it is not. So if I eat the mango that is in season on the other side of the globe, but it's not in season for me, then that mango will bother me because it is not in season for me here right now. We must be cognizant of these subtle differences and we should not be eating everything at all times. We should also look at how food interacts with us. In particular, if something happens to be good for other people, it may not necessarily be good for me. So we have to also look at how food affects each one of us as individuals. What we do as a part of the Sattva program is make sure that the people who participate with us, who are with us, are counseled and are guided based on their constitution. So even though Shekhar Dada has shown you all the platters under the name of Pattar Kine platter, there is no such thing called Pattar Kine platter. In our household, there are many platters and we eat all kinds of food. I like to eat a lot of natural food, but my first rule is I should not eat unless I'm hungry, and I should not overeat. How should I find that out? When I start eating, I eat carefully. I chew my food very well, and then when I get a feeling of satiety, sometimes I get a little burp, then stop, and then wait until you digest all the food, until you get hungry again, and then you eat again. If you don't get hungry twice a day, eat only once a day. Who's stopping you? Keep enough duration or enough fasting duration between your meals. The only way we can do that, I cannot be watching my clock, or I cannot be watching my calories, or I cannot be watching all the proteins and carbohydrates and fatty acids and all those, wonderful things Shekhar Dada has told us about. I'm an ordinary person who doesn't have this much knowledge nor intelligence, but I have the inner feeling of hunger, right? If I get hungry, then I should eat and I should wait until I get hungry again. So these are very simple rules which I have tried to follow in my life. And then what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, all of these things start dawning within us. We start understanding these things intuitively from within us. And after having experimented with food myself, and we have so many participants in the program and understanding from their responses to food, we have come up with a certain understanding of how food interacts with us and how food also affects our mind. Okay. So thank you, Shekhar Dada, for enlightening us on all the finer details, the intricate details. Some of those details we may not be able to understand. It's okay. When we have doubt, then we can always call you and ask you. So I'm going to share your number with those people who ask me, I want to get in touch with Shekhar Dada. Shekhar Dada is extremely generous in terms of sharing his knowledge, sharing his experience. By all means, connect with him. If he is not able to talk to you when you call him, I'm sure he'll call you back at some point. When he talks, he is always so joyful. I think he laughs more than he talks, which is so good. Laughing is good for us. It's good for gut health. It's good for our stomach. It's good for our stomach muscles as well.
I eat banana every day. That's why.
So, Shekhar Dada, I have
Yes,
enjoyed
sir.
this conversation very much.
Thank you so
Actually,
much
I have
for giving
enjoyed
the
your
honor
speech
to
very much. This
talk.
was not a conversation. I did not speak at all. I let you finish all of your thoughts. But now we will open this forum up for conversation. So if anybody wants to speak, can you raise your hand and then I can unmute you and then you can ask your question to Shekhar Dada? Any questions anybody has? Samir, our brother, is here. Samir is always
And
full of questions.
of course, for answering purposes, I think I will count on Praveen to
Help you.
give a lot of answer. He has a lot of direct, experienced answer for a lot of things.
Okay, so Samir, go ahead. Then I'm going to unmute Anjali and then Mukta one by one. So go ahead.
Namaste, Shekhar Dada.
Namaskar.
I have two questions.
Mhm.
Uh, First question is the concepts that you have introduced. Are they part of a regular subject of neuroscience, which you have a PhD in, or are they related to? Are they new ideas connected to Adhyatma? And second most important question is, if someone has a neurological problem, past neurological problem, can they alleviate their problem to some extent or to a larger extent using your these present ideas? Thank you.
Yes, yes. Answer is yes, yes, yes. All in all the questions that you have. Now,
Oh,
if there is a brain situation, to be very honest with you, this is my general observation for last, I don't know, 20 years or so, 25 years, that anybody who has gut challenge going on, please fix that, because it is not good to prolong it. Eventually, it will affect your brain, and it will affect the. Say, for instance, if there are some people who are suffering from anxiety, depression, right now in the United States, 50%, 50. It is not a joke to talk about 50% Americans having, one in two people having anxiety, panic attack, depression, this and that. This is not right. So
Wow.
I suggest them that they fix their gut health, number one, by drinking water, warm water with lemon in it in the morning, and you doing exercises which stretches their abdomen in some way. Either abdomen stretching is going bending forward, bending backward, bending left side, right side, and bending like twisting or twisting the whole this thing like at the abdomen level here, doing any yogasan or anything which helps you put some pressure on your abdomen. That is extremely important for maintaining gut health, because it activates the Manipura chakra, vagus nerve activation, and therefore the brain activation. So I would be very make sure that your now, why is gut health problem? Sometimes because of the food that we eat, in the wrong food that we eat, will gut will be unhappy with it. How do you know food is right? That is the first question. Let's find out. How do you know food is right? Somebody asked me a question that saying that I feel like tempted by the senses. That Bhagavad Gita fellows will discuss more much better than me. Prayers and Shreyas, right? There is something like prayers and Shreyas. What is Shreyaskar for you? What is better for you is, you know who will tell you? Morning. Go in the morning, he will tell you. Morning sitting in that, in wherever you are doing your Visarjan, he will tell you whether what it was good or not. So don't worry
Great.
about that temptation aspect of food. Worry about what is good for you rather than what is pleasurable. So,
Thank you, Shekhar Dada. Thank you, Samir, for the question. There are three hand raises here, which I'm going to take one by one. And then there are some questions in the chat as well. So we'll go one by one here. So, Anjali, why don't you unmute and then ask your question, please?
अंजलि जी,
Yeah,
आप
she has
बोलिए.
unmuted.
अंजलि जी बोल रही हैं. नमस्ते अंजलि जी. Cannot
अंजलि
hear.
ऐकू नाही येत आहे. Is your audio connected through the internet or through the phone? If you want to log out and log back in, I think that might work, and connect through internet audio. And until then, we'll take another question. So why don't we let Mukta Didi ask her question, and then we'll let Anjali ask her question later. Go ahead, Mukta Didi.
This is just a question about,
Namaste, Mukta ji.
Namaste. So you had said about coffee and tea and all. So I'm just trying to justify my craving for those. Whereas in a sattvic diet, coffee, tea, tomatoes, mushrooms are not really recommended. But then you said they are good for different.
Yes, if they are very good for different. Of course, if you, I mean, I gave the overall aspect to it. Now, you understand that mushroom has vitamin D in it, right? So the good thing to take vitamin D is stand in the sun. so, so that will be taken care of. So not necessarily worry about what it is giving me. Then only, okay, if that same thing is given somewhere else, then you could, like for instance, omega-3 fatty acid. Fish, salmon has the maximum amount of good, but I don't eat fish. How do I go? Eat flaxseed. Flaxseed has a whole lot of till. Till has a lot of sesame seed has a lot of omega-3. So in Makar Sankranti they do the til gur gya gor bola. Na, what is that? Basically is Abhi Makar Sankranti is coming on 15th, right? So why they suggest you to take till that time? Because that increases your omega-3 fatty acid in our system, and that helps your brain function better, things like that. And what else was your another question you said?
Coffee and
Was
tea.
tea and coffee. Now one thing,
Tomato.
yeah, coffee little bit is not bad because it gives you good excess coffee. I strongly warn. Why it is? Because caffeine in the coffee. These are the good aspect, but there is a negative aspect to coffee also. It is caffeine, which is excitation, high level. And what happens is caffeine at a higher concentration sequesters the B12 vitamin. Now, B12 vitamin is good for nerve action potential, uh, nerve activity, right? So if the nerve activity is the one which is regulating the nerve activity, vitamin B12 is sequestered and not allowed to act, what happens is suddenly you feel low because nerve activity is going down. And then you say, oh my God, I need another cup of coffee. What happens is you are loading more of caffeine, but at the same time, you are sequestering more of vitamin B12. That is the danger part. The addiction to, because the coffee causes caffeine addiction, that's the problem. So that's why the decaffeinated thing came up into the business, right? So that you can get the good thing, but not the bad thing out. So to get the decaffeinated, how do you decaffeinate a coffee? Take the coffee, soak in cold water overnight, throw the water away, use that to create your coffee. That's the best thing. You don't have to
Great.
buy a decaffeinated box. You can decaffeinate your coffee right there. How you do that? You put the beans in your powder in cold water overnight, let it soak. Caffeine is water soluble, so it will go away. And take that, which is like 95, 80%, 80 to 90% caffeine out of that. The rest of them is all are alls, right? Like catechol and all these alls, they can be released only with heating. So that's why it is. So the best way to do that.
Thank you, Shekhar Dada. I'm going to answer the tomato question here, okay? Now,
Okay.
tomato can be good. See, everything in nature is medicinal. Okay, food has medicinal properties. Everything has medicinal properties. What happens to us is because we like something, we taste good, we overdo it. And overdose of any medicine is not good. As I said, overdose of even sattvic food is not good. Definitely, for those who have certain conditions, tomatoes are not good. Tomatoes will cause uric acid. Okay. So if you have a uric acid issue, it could be exacerbated by eating tomatoes. If I eat tomatoes every now and then, it's not going to bother me, but it is better to avoid. See, in terms of eating something that is sour, okay, what sour things are good? According to Ayurveda, there are 4 sour things that don't actually create sourness or acidity in the body. Those 4 things are, one is the amsul. Okay, it is called what indica कहते हैं उसको? शेखर दादा आपको याद है क्या? It's called something indica.
नहीं याद है.
नहीं याद है ना? Somebody can look it up. So amsul is one, which is also called kokum.
Garcinia indica, right?
Garcinia indica.
Garcinia
Garcinia
indica.
indica. Garcinia
Ah,
indica. Okay.
okay.
Garcinia indica is one. Second is the Mosambi. Mosambi का हम, it's not like Sandra, it's Mosambi, sweeter, like the sweet lime.
Grapefruit type of.
हाँ, but sweet lime. तो ये दूसरा हो गया. See, one is Amsul, one is Mosambi, third is pomegranate. Okay.
Ah, yes, yes, yes.
And the fourth, and I saved the best for the last, is Amla, gooseberry.
क्या बात है.
Okay, so these 4
Rich
things,
in vitamin C.
so these 4 things are sour to taste, but those 4 things don't cause acidity in the body. So those 4 things we should eat plentifully. There is no problem with those. Anything else that is sour, which includes lime, lemon, tamarind, and tomato, we should eat in moderation, if at all. Okay. If you can live without tomatoes, if they are local to you, if they grow near you, there are certain very sweet tomatoes. The small grape tomatoes, they might be okay to eat every now and then. But regular tomatoes, if you eat them morning, daytime, and evening, it's probably not a good idea. So thank you, Shekhar Dada, for letting me speak.
Yes, sure.
All right,
Thank you very
Nainatai, you have your hand up. So I'll let Nainatai unmute herself and then you can ask the question. Go ahead, Nainatai. Nainatai, you have to unmute yourself. Thank you, Mukta Didi.
Did I? Yeah. Yeah. Dada, question to you regarding the cognitive development in the older people, because you said DHA, the omega-3, that helps. So I'm on Sattvic diet for like almost 6 to 7 months, and enough of omega-3 and all, I think I'm consuming it. But it's my own experience that sometimes even I forget things, what I did a while ago, or some names rather, so, or some incidences. So why is this happening even on consuming a natural diet with rich in DHA?
2 things. Thank you, Naina Tai. This is one wonderful question that you asked. They said I ate. people just focus on diet sometimes. The other aspect to it also is exercise, right? So you have to activate those inner stuff. Somebody said I eat all the vitamins A, B, C, D, E, and I look like an H. I don't look like a. So I eat all the vitamins, but I still look like an H. So what? Why is that? I said you should exercise. I think I would in addition to diet, and that's why I gave the nutritional yogic neurosciences twist to this talk, was because this particular thing, yogic, if you just do yogic and no proper eating, that is also self-destructive. If you just do the eating and no yoga and pranayama and all that, that is also useless. So do both simultaneously. It helps, because that I wanted to bridge both the thing together. Because of lack of time, I could not do. I have a lot of work on that for front to discuss some other time. I will do that.
Yeah, surely. I mean, we can have
How
another
to
program
bridge
with
both
you.
of them together, like a merger of the two fields, fusion of that. So that's what I will discuss some other time. But you should exercise, walk, especially walk. If you, okay, wow, brilliant. Walking of all the exercises increases osteocalcin, walking, right? Now, the third movement of the walk, when you walk on that, So that is what creates osteocalcin in our, from the bone marrow, it comes out into the blood. And when it reaches the brain, it slows down, the cognitive decline brilliantly. And there is so much good studies going, or the actual studies have been done in the lab. I'll tell you about that some other time. Vikramji, why don't you set up another time
I will.
immediately, right
Yeah,
away,
yeah.
to discuss what is the benefit of different exercise regime. Say, for instance, some people cannot do a lot of bending and all that exercise, but walking can you do? Walking will help you 2 miles, at least 2 miles a day. I would, for me, I would recommend like 25 miles in a week. 25 miles in a week if you walk, you will never, ever, ever have this cognitive decline situation in your life. Never. It is not possible. Because osteocalcin has the property to actually destroy the cognitive decline in our body. Walk.
Meghnatayi, I think
So,
if we do that, what Shekhar Dada has told you just now, our entire
Yes.
yoga class will go only in walking.
no. For some people who have this challenge of not doing the bending too much or not flexible situation, or gone have all the life has gone by without doing anything, now what to do? But there is a solution for what to do, kind of. Now there is not a dead end of it. There is always some backup. Like, for instance, if you don't like tomato, you eat something else. So the same thing is there. If you don't like fish, you eat something else. Same way here also. I cannot, I'm eating everything Sattv food, but what about my cognitive decline? Yeah, you walk. Now everything will be good.
Yes. Yeah, because I do yoga all 7 days, but yes, now I will
Walk
concentrate more.
also. Walk is very important. बहुत important है walking.
Okay, so I'll let Anjali unmute herself. Anjali, why don't you unmute? I'm asking you to unmute. Go ahead, please. Anjali, can you unmute?
ओके आता
Great.
ऐकायला येतंय
Yes.
Yes, we can listen to you.
आता मला तुमचं नाही ऐकायला येतंय सो ऐकायला
Fantastic.
येतंय मी
हो
येतंय,
ऐकायला
येतंय.
पण येतं आणि दिसतायत
नमस्कार.
पण आपण.
मला नाही वाटत माझं चालू आहे मला का नाही ऐकायला येतं माझं बोलणं तुम्हाला
ऐकू येतंय ना, आम्हाला ऐकू येतंय.
येतंय आम्हाला.
ओके एनिवेज
Good,
माझा
good.
प्रश्न त्यांनी उत्तर दिलंय की मला प्रश्न होता की रवा वापरला तर चालेल का ओटमिलच्या ऐवजी तर ते नाही म्हणाले सो विच इज गुड आय गॉट द आन्सर फॉर इट अँड अनदर सजेशन इज तुमची जी शेवटची स्लाइड होती की ज्याच्यात खाण्यामुळे तुमचं अन्न बघण्यामध्ये तुम्हाला जे पोट भरतं तसं अभिमन्यूची गोष्ट एक अतिशय उत्तम आहे की इवन आईचे संस्कार कसे असतात तुम्ही जेव्हा गर्भात असता तेव्हा ते महत्वाचे असतात सो दॅट इज अ होल अनदर स्टोरी की तुमचं शरीर काया वाचा मने तयार होत असतं सो तुम्ही मनात काय घालताय हे महत्वाचं असतं तुमच्या शरीरात काय घालताय हे महत्वाचं असतं आणि तुम्ही बोलताय का इतरांना तुम्ही आनंद देताय का त्याने दुसरा एक असतो तुमचं शरीर बनतं मन बनतं सो दॅट्स ऑल आय कॅन से थँक्स
Thank you, Anjali Tai.
Thank you, Anjali ji.
Fantastic. So Girija Joshi is wanting to unmute. Girija Tai, would you like to unmute, please? Go ahead. And
Namaste, Shekhar Dada and Vikram Dada.
नमस्कार. काय म्हणताय?
It has been a fantastic session. आणि
Thank you.
एकच
Thanks,
मला प्रश्न आहे I'm
Vikram
at a
Dada.
very
Thank Vikram Dada for everything. It's all him. 100%.
नाही, I'm grateful to both of you. My question is I'm at a very elementary stage. तर I want some small tips की डिसिप्लिन मध्ये कसं जायचं किंवा there is so much temptation किंवा तुम्ही फॅमिलीसाठी किंवा सोशल ऑकेजन्स मध्ये there is food everywhere. How to take baby steps to walk on this path. And my
Dada,
second
you tell.
question.
Vikram Dada, you are in the
And my second question is, if somebody has had a transient stroke for like 4 or 5 minutes, a small episode, what are the immediate steps that can be taken to prevent such things or to reduce the damage that was done? ते आणि एका subsequent पुढच्या session मध्ये, if you can explain more about statins, those session I will look forward to. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
stroke-
we'll talk about that social thing first. Okay. So is Pooja here by any chance? Pooja Didi, are you here? Pooja Didi is not here. Nainate. Nainate is way more social than I am. So Nainate has probably much better answer than I do. Nainate, you want to answer this question? Go ahead. Unmute, unmute. Ek minute, unmute. Go ahead. Unmute. We can hear you now. Go ahead. You have to unmute again.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What was the question regarding the social gathering, right?
So how do you control when you are in a social gathering? You are way more social than I am. So you tell. What have you done? Your experience. How have you controlled it?
My experience is, before I leave for any social gathering, I take the vegetable smoothie at home, or I eat fruits, and I fill my stomach, up to certain level, and that way when I go there, I eat less. And what people do, they are not really concentrating on what you eat. Have everything on your plate, and I pretend, yeah, I'm going to have more. This is tasty, that is tasty. But my stomach is almost full because I take that thing, smoothie and whatever the natural stuff Dada said. So I do all that before I leave for any social gathering, any. Even I have fruits before going there. And the main reason is because I have detachment for the food. I've developed that. When I'm in Sattva program, so I have developed that detachment after a certain time. That is what the lifestyle change I made while in the program. So that will help you a lot. That is how I discipline myself.
Thank you so much. So Girijatai, you got the answer to the first question. You have to repeat the first question, second question, because we forgot. Girijatai, you have to unmute.
If my question is, I'm humbly asking this question, if somebody has had a transient stroke, which lasted for 5 or 6 minutes, what are the steps that can be taken to kind of undo the damage that has happened to the brain, or to prevent such further things? And the person
I'll let
vegetarian.
Shekhar Dada handle that, because he's more into brain than I am. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the person is vegetarian.
Go ahead, Shekhar
Okay.
Dada.
Yes. Now, the first thing that you should do is, the stroke is basically high blood pressure. Okay. Basically high blood pressure in making way inside the blood, inside the brain, and the very small capillaries burst. That's what stroke is. That is hypertension. First it starts with pre-hypertension, then it becomes stroke, right? That's what it is. So hold up a lot of things on vitamin C, lot of orange juice, oranges, things like that you must eat. Second thing is high blood pressure. Why is high blood pressure is a kidney challenge. Remember that. It is not a cardiovascular, it manifests itself in cardiovascular situation, but it is a kidney problem. Kidney means filtration problem, osmoregulation problem, which means potassium and sodium levels are not doing well. That increase in sodium, to cut down sodium, not 100%, remember that, because sodium is very important for action potential of neurons. So the neurons do not work or do not send current from one end of the body to another end of the without sodium. Sodium is so important, but excessive sodium can cause problems, which means your kidney is non-functional properly. So eat beans, banana, and vitamin C. That is the first thing. Second thing is action item is do yoga nidra. Very, 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 very important. Yoga Nidra is panacea. It is a Brahman for stroke victims or people who have had stroke for a few seconds. Lay down on the floor. I can share with you the link later on, which is the best of all, the best Yoga Nidra video that I could share with you. Listen to it and do Yoga Nidra as per the directions. It will help you solve all those challenges. So these are the things I will suggest. Kidney
Great.
problem is basically because of lack of filtration. Beans are very, very good. The Rajma beans are very, very good for the kidney health. Okay.
Great. So
And
thank you. There was one other question. I'm going to take some questions from the chat.
yes,
Amazing session. Thank you so much. Just curious, how good is to consume something like avocados or olives which are not local? Thank you.
don't consume them.
No, you can consume them in moderate quantity.
Moderate.
Okay, so especially dry fruit. Okay, so we eat walnuts, right? Or almonds. So seeds can go from one country to another without being destroyed or uh, deteriorate. So they won't deteriorate when you. So seeds or nuts are very good to consume from anywhere. Okay, but again, you have to consume them in small quantity because the seed contains the blueprint for an entire tree. So it contains all the nutrition packed into it, which is very good. So we should soak the seeds at night, and then in the morning we can wash the water off. So all the toxins from the seed are released overnight in the water, and then after that we can eat the seed either with the cover or without the cover. It doesn't really matter because the cover has lost all of its toxic material by then. So yes, you can eat that. Olives, I would say olives, if I'll my rule of thumb is very simple. I'll tell you, if you go to the market and you look at the produce, fresh vegetables or fruits, whatever is the cheapest you buy. Why? It is cheap because it is produced in plenty and therefore it is cheap.
And locally produced also.
Yes, exactly. So whatever is locally produced, it will be cheap in any season. So during the summer in Bharat, mangoes will be cheap. During the winter, maybe oranges or sitafal may be cheap. So whatever is cheapest in the market, you should eat that always. So that saves you money, it keeps you healthy, and it also keeps nature healthy. Thank you. There was another question. There is so much temptation in foods. Of course, Girijate, we have asked you. Oh, we have already answered that question for you. Then request you to please share the PPT with Shekhar Dada to our email address. Okay, this whole program is being recorded and it is going to go on YouTube. So you will have the entire presentation and Shekhar Dada's narration in addition to that. Why don't you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to us, and you will have that available at all times. Okay. And you can feel free to schedule a one-on-one with us at any time. Great. Any other questions? I think we are all done with questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who has, okay, really? Okay. I think it's all good. Fantastic. Thank you, Shekhar Dada, for spending an
Thank you so
hour
much.
and hour and almost 41 minutes. It's 11:11 in my
I know.
clock.
But I finished in 40 minutes, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
That was not.
Nainate always is amazed that when I see the clock, I see numbers like this 1111. Right now it's 11:11 on my clock. Okay, so Nainate, on this note, we'll take your leave. Thank you everybody for attending. We will see you again in a program like this absolutely sometime soon. Okay, namaste.
Namaste.